touch mine.
Now, everybody knows it's not easy to win a championship in NBA, and sometimes in the name of reaching the top of the mountain, NBA teams almost risk everything in hopes to achieve success. And a lot of the time, when you look at the aftermath of a truly disastrous trade, you think to yourself, what the hell was the front office thinking? Don't worry, I'm here for you. Today we're going to quickly run through the 5 worst trades since 2010. At number 5, we have Rajon Rondo headed to the Dallas Mavs. On December 18, 2014, Rondo was traded along with Dwight Powell to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Jay Crowder, Jameer Nelson, and Brandon Wright. And of course, do not forget about the 2015 first-round protected pick. Now, being a Mavs fan, I still have a bad taste in my mouth through this whole ordeal, but I still have to give credit to the owner Mark Cuban and the coaching staff for rolling the dice on this trade and actually going for a finals push. And of course, I'm not gonna lie, adding Rondo on paper looks very nice.
Wow, is very nice.
And Rondo's playmaking ability and defensive lockdown ability to the mix only would tremendously help the Mavs on both ends of the court. In reality, it was a complete disaster from the get-go. Now, Rondo looked completely lost in the Mavs offense. His inability to shoot ends up clogging the Mavericks' spacing and thus their offense to trash. And of course, don't even get me started on his goddamn free throws. To top it all off, he wasn't listening to anything Rick Carlisle was saying, and Rick Carlisle wasn't taking any of that shit. Next up is Brooklyn loses his chance to acquire Damian Lillard. Classic Billy King trade. This dude clearly doesn't give a fuck about future first round picks. This is probably why Brooklyn's future looks so dreadful at the moment. With Darren Williams able to opt out and become an unrestricted free agent following the 2011 season, and the Nets desperately trying to give him motivation to stay, the Nets pulled the trigger on this deal at the deadline to help assure any concerns that they actually want him to stay. So the Nets actually ended up receiving Gerald Wallace from the Portland Trail Blazers, of all people, for a top 3 protected first round pick. After the trade, Gerald Wallace had a very below mediocre time in Brooklyn, averaging 7.5 points, 4.5 rebounds per game. They just did not mesh together. But don't worry, Gerald Wallace still got paid. And guess who Portland picked up with the draft pick? You guessed it, the Rookie of the Year, Damian Lillard. As Gerald Wallace said, you either hit it big or you don't. They took a gamble and it backfired. But don't worry, this isn't the last time you'll see Billy King in this list. Moving along now, at number 3 we have New York trades for Andre Bargnani. I know what you're thinking, only the Knicks would make a stupid ass trade like this, and I agree. On July 2nd, 2013, Andre Bargnani got traded from the Toronto Raptors in exchange for Marcus Camby, Steve Novak, 2 future second round picks, and 1 first round draft pick in the 2016 NBA draft. It seems like we all knew Andre Bargnani was straight trash except for the New York Knicks. He was coming off horrible seasons from the Raptors. He played horrendous defense and was one of the worst rebounding big men in the NBA. And to top it all off, it always seemed like he was injured. And surprise, when he arrived in New York, he only played a handful of games. In the games that he did play, he wasn't playing so hot. And of course now the New York Knicks are kicking themselves in the ass for this. Because imagine if the Knicks had a chance to add a lottery picked player to aid Porzingis or Melo and address one of their holes either at point guard or at the wing. Instead, that pick will either go to Toronto or Denver depending on where it lands, and the Knicks for now look like they're going to be spectators on draft day rather than participants. At number 2 we have the James Harden trade. Now, I have to admit that I had a lot of trouble either putting this in the number 1 or 2 position simply because this is such a game-changing trade. In the summer of 2013, after failing to agree on a contract extension, the Oklahoma City Thunder traded James Harden along with Daquan Cook, Cole Aldridge to the Houston Rockets for Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb, and 2 first-round picks. People were really confused about this trade because the year prior they just made it to the NBA championship and James Harden was coming off an amazing year where he could have won the 6th Man of the Year award. In the summer, they offered him 4 years, around $52 to $55 million to retain his services. Of course, he wouldn't budge, he wanted more, and OKC just simply couldn't do it. Since getting traded to Houston, James Harden has been simply dominating. He's been averaging around 26 points per game. He's a multiple-time All-Star, MVP candidate. Even though he's accused of playing almost zero defense at times, he's the type of player that every team would love to have. And on the other hand, Oklahoma's assets, Kevin Martin and Jeremy Lamb, aren't even on the team anymore. But of course, they did get Steven Adams out of it, which isn't a complete failure. Until this day, people are still talking about this notorious trade and what could have been and how many championships could this dynasty have won. At number 1, the Brooklyn Nets fuck up big time. And I told you my friend Billy King would be back, didn't I? Man, this one is very bad. I don't even know where to start. But I understand that the Nets took a chance and went for it. But my God, when you mortgage off your entire fucking team to win 5 playoff games, you deserve every shred of criticism you get. On July 12, 2013, the Brooklyn Nets officially announced they had acquired Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, DJ White from the Boston Celtics in exchange for Jared Wallace, Chris Humphrey, and Marshawn Brooks. And we're not done yet. They still have their unprotected first-round draft picks in 2014, 2016, and 2018. But shout out to Danny Ainge for sticking his hand inside the chest of the Brooklyn Nets and pulling their heart straight out. In total, the Nets spent a record $197 million on salary and taxes during the 2013-2014 season, with 44 wins and 1 playoff series to show for it. Unfortunately for the Nets, it does get a little bit worse. While the Nets didn't give up much in terms of players, they're paying the price right now they never thought they'd have to deal with the time of the trade. The Nets simply thought they would have won a championship by now, but instead they're in desperate need of a rebuilding mode. The only problem is Boston has all their goddamn draft picks. The Brooklyn Nets are going to be complete trash until they figure out a way how to turn it around somehow. In my opinion, it's going to be a painful few years until the team finally gets out underneath this terrible trade they had with the Celtics. I appreciate y'all watching. This was my very first YouTube video, so let me know where I can improve, what you guys liked. Rate, comment, subscribe.